All right, I'm back with another Q&A style video where I'm going to answer all your questions that you've thrown to me on YouTube about your websites. I'm Wes McDowell, web strategist for The Deep End, and let's just jump right into your questions. And by the way, if you have any more questions about either your website, landing pages, email marketing, digital marketing, anything like that, go ahead and leave it down below, and in the next Q&A video, I will try to get to it. Okay, right off the top, our first question comes from Konstantin Kaluta, and he asks, how about using a background video in a hero section? So basically, I've done a lot of talking in the past about the hero section, which is just that really big, wide section up at the top of any homepage that has a nice big graphic behind it and usually pretty quickly has to tell people what you do, why it matters, and what to do next. So that's the hero. So he's asking, what about using a background video in that spot instead of an image? And I actually really like this idea with a few caveats, right? So any video won't do. So here's a few types that won't work. Anything that's too distracting or has too many jump cuts in it is not gonna work very well, because at the end of the day, your hero video needs to communicate those three items that I just mentioned. Basically telling people what it is you do and how you can help them. So what I recommend if you're gonna use a video there, it should just be what I would consider to be an ambient video, ideally no cuts, just kind of a, think almost like, this is kind of a really simple example and maybe not the best one, but just like a video of a beach, just like waves rolling in, something that's kind of ambient and sets a mood and sets a tone, but isn't really gonna be distracting. So like if you were, a dog groomer, it might just be a single shot of you grooming a dog. And you could go back and forth between a few dogs, but it shouldn't be like jump cut, jump cut, jump cut MTV style. That's not gonna, that's just gonna be distracting. So be careful with what you do. And there's a few other considerations here as well, specifically load speed. So what you wanna do is definitely use one that's embedded, like on YouTube or Vimeo, probably YouTube. They're just built for quick buffering for these videos. So what would be really bad is if they come to your site and it's a self-hosted video, meaning it's on your server space, and that basically just eats up a lot of bandwidth, and it probably will take quite a bit of time, probably 5 seconds or more for that video to even start loading. So do it a YouTube embed so it loads quick. Make it very kind of ambient and gentle and not too many jump cuts, because that's just going to be distracting. All right, and our next question comes from Michael Gorman, and it says, do you think the About Us page is compulsory, or is this a diminishing feature? Can we be so informative with our other pages it makes this one redundant? So is the About Us page that important? It pretty much, it's a yes and no question. The About Us page is typically the second most visited page on any website. I don't know that that means in and of itself that it's really that important. Here's what I'll say about the About Us page. I think it's good to have, but I also think you need to go a little step further with it than what most people think of it. So what your About Us page actually should not be is all about you, which sounds very counterintuitive. Like, of course, the About Us page would be about us, right? Not necessarily. What I recommend you do with your About Us page is that's basically an extra place that lets you reiterate your overall philosophy of how you help your clients and your customers. So use it to talk about why you help your customers, how you help your customers, the overall overarching, belief you have as a company. For instance, I always use the example for The Deep End in my business, which is I believe that your website should always bring you in new clients every day. What I'm not doing is talking all about how we got started in 2011 and, pictures of the office dog and all that kind of those are things that are a little indulgent that you should probably stay away from. But people do want to get a sense that there's a real, that there's human beings behind a business. So it's important for that reason. What I definitely am always a little thrown off when I go to a website that feels like it's for a small business and there's no human presence there whatsoever. You see this a lot on other web designers' websites. Basically, it's got all their work and some text, but they're nowhere present. So it makes you wonder, is this person even real? Like, what is it going to be like working with this person? So be human, but keep it focused on how you help your customers and you'll do just fine. So to answer your real question, is it that important? I would say it is important, but do those things that I just said and it should work much better for you. All right, next question is from Kevin, no last name. What are the most useful tabs to have on your website? So I guess what this question means is, the navigation items at the top. What are the most important pages that you definitely want to have? And of course, it's a little different for a lot of different websites. Mostly what I work on are service business websites, so I can really speak to that. In which case, you'll obviously need a link to the homepage. Usually that's done in the logo in the top left corner. Other than that, you definitely want a pricing page. I've talked about this before. A lot of service businesses kind of gloss over the pricing, but you want that page. You want an FAQs page, which is designed to bust through objections and answer all those questions that you actually get all the time, which allows you to kind of do a lot of selling on the website without actually having to talk to people, which is just a good way to scale your business. The other thing is, social proof of some kind. So this can either be a testimonials page, a reviews page, case studies, of people you've helped before. I like to call this page, success stories, and actually have a mixture of testimonials, both video and written, as well as a few case studies. I think that works really well. What else I've got here would be, if you offer multiple services up in the navigation, you'd want to have basically a drop down of services. So it would say services, then you have that drop down menu that would kind of call them all out so people can go and choose whatever service they're actually interested in. And the other thing would be if what you do relies on any kind of visual component. If you're a web designer, if you're an interior designer, if you're a contractor, where you want to show those before and after photos, plastic surgeons, that kind of thing, you're definitely going to want some kind of a gallery as well. All right, next one comes from Matthew Hobbs, and Matthew says, do you recommend testimonials that are quoted and typed out from other reviews? So let's say you quote a complete review or just best part of a longer review left on Facebook or a Google business listing. Does it carry more weight to have a plugin that pulls reviews directly from my Google business listing, including their photo and how many stars the reviewer rated? Are quotes typed out considered less authentic and maybe fake or made up? Yeah, Matthew, that's a really good question. So basically, what I definitely recommend is kind of having these reviews that are pulled in from other sources like Yelp, Google reviews, Facebook, anything like that. Here's the thing though, you have to be careful of. So when you're talking about like basically a plugin that's pulling these in dynamically, most of those give you very little control over the reviews that are coming in. Just be aware of that. So let's say someone leaves you a 1-star review on Google, that's going to be in there. I don't think you can really choose that. And furthermore, I think most of these plugins that I've found, at least, they only allow for like 5 of them at a time. So at any given time, it's only going to show the most recent 5, which can be fine if those are all great reviews. But let's say even they're 5-star reviews, but they don't tell a great story. They just say, 2 thumbs up, great service. That's not a good review or testimonial. What you want is you want to kind of be able to hand pick the best reviews that actually tell that transformational story of how you found someone when they first came to you, all the way through how you helped them and what their life looks like at the end of it. So what I've actually found is a pretty good workaround, and most people aren't going to be bumped by it too much. So what you do is you can take these reviews either from these other sites like Yelp or whatever, and just retype them onto your site, but just style it very similarly to how it appears in the, on that native app. And then most people aren't going to really do too much homework to dig and figure out like, this isn't real. They just type this out themselves. Because the truth is, anytime it's on your website, it's always going to come with a little bit less weight, even if it's kind of pulled directly from their API, just because most people don't understand the difference between dynamically pulled in versus you putting it there as the business owner. But if they're on Yelp or they're on Google, they're going to automatically trust it to be real. So it's fine. I would just take a mixture of those reviews you find in other sites, as well as some that maybe you just get yourself, including video testimonials. Those are huge. So always try to get at least one of those. And whenever you kind of retype out the testimonials from other third-party sites, you're just going to want to add, 5 stars, assuming it's a 5-star review, and then, 5-star Yelp review, 5-star Google review. You can use the logo there if you want to. These are just nice little indicators that most people will take you at your word for. All right, moving right along to our next question from Puneet Bayad. And he says, where should I place the lead magnet to make it discoverable on a website? So a few places, Puneet. What you're going to want to do is when we talk about a lead magnet, obviously that's a valuable piece of content that people can leave their email address in exchange to get access to it. So it's great for building your email list. It's really smart to put this in a few places of prominence on your website. What I like to do is, first of all, you want to put it on its own opt-in page. So have a page dedicated to that lead magnet, and that's all it's for. That way, you can run Facebook ads to it, YouTube ads to it, whatever, so that it's basically its own landing page, so you don't have to say, come to my site, and then dig around to find the lead magnet. No, it's a link that you can really easily communicate. The other thing to do is put it at the bottom of your homepage, like a smaller version of, so the opt-in page, the standalone page is going to be longer. It's going to have more information. But what I like to do is make a little opt-in block, a reusable section that I put at the bottom of almost every page on the site. So what happens is people are on your site, they're looking around, they're looking at your various services, but they're not ready to buy yet, right? We know that almost everybody coming to your site for the first time is just researching. So, but while they're researching and they're looking and they're scrolling down to the bottom of the page, let's say they're not ready to buy yet, but hey, here's this other opportunity for something that's free that you can just opt in for right now. And for extra points, what I like to do as well is put an exit intent pop-up on your site as well. So what happens is people are on your site, they're just kind of ready to move on, check out the next site or next competitor, whatever. So they're mousing back up toward the back button, and then a pop-up appears saying, hey, before you leave, I've got this great piece of content, how about it? And sure, you could say these are annoying, but hey, they work. That's why people have been doing them for so long. And by the way, they were about to leave your site anyway. So what I don't recommend is a pop-up that just comes like, I can't tell you how many sites I go to, including new client sites when I'm checking out their site. You go to their homepage and just a pop-up appears right away. Don't do that, but do the exit intent pop-up and you should be just fine. All right, next question is from Samo, and he says, hi, how do I redesign a big website, 100 plus pages on WordPress without hurting search engine rankings? Do you have to do that manually, page by page, or is there a better way? So this is kind of a confusing question because obviously if you're redesigning a big website, you do have to redesign it basically page by page. There may be certain pages that are more templatized that just kind of, the old content will just go into the new templates. But what you're really asking about is it going to hurt search engine rankings? So not necessarily if you do it right. So there's a few ways you can redesign a site, right? The first way is just, it's an aesthetic redesign. The pages are just going to look different, but it's going to be the same content. Another thing could be you're reshuffling everything, restructuring the content, which is usually a good thing to do because at least most of my clients come to me with less than optimal page structures, So what we like to do is figure out what pages are necessary, what pages aren't so necessary, and then come up with a new structure for that. So the way you can get hit with Google rankings is, let's say you're ranking really well. You're at the top of the search engines, but you're probably not there for every single page, right? So what you want to do first is identify your top pages you're getting most of your traffic through, and you're probably going to want to preserve those pages, at least the URLs. You can absolutely change the look and even the content on those pages, but if you've got a page that's, let's say, just use for an example, the deependdesign.com/web consulting. I get a lot of traffic to that page. So what I wouldn't want to do is make a brand new page and then it's called the deependdesign.com/website consulting, for instance. As long as your URLs stay the same, you're good to go. And even if they change, what I recommend you do is just do a 301 redirect. It sounds technical, but all it really is, you can get a plugin for WordPress to do it. So basically, if I were to do that, and I would just, now the new site is website consulting, what I would do is a 301 redirect, so Google knows, hey, whenever someone goes to web consulting, redirect them to website consulting and pass along all of the SEO power that original page had. And within a few months, Google will kind of shift all that ranking power to the new page, and it'll be 95% as powerful as the original one. So I hope that answers your question, but yeah, you definitely do have to think strategically about the pages when you're redoing a website, specifically if you're already ranking well. Oh, the other thing I want to mention too is if a page is ranking well, you want to kind of preserve the text on that page as well, or at least either preserve it or improve it, right? So if you're getting if you have a page that's getting a lot of traffic, what you don't want to do is take that page with maybe 2,000 words on it and then condense it down to like 200 words. You're probably going to lose a lot of that SEO power if you do it that way. Okay, next question comes from David Negrete, and he says, what can I do if we're not allowed to share prices or even ballpark prices by the manufacturer of our products? So, I've done a video in the past about should you publish your pricing. Even mentioned it a little earlier in this video. Yeah, you definitely need to mention your pricing on your website if you're a service business, because people are looking for that information. People want to know, what can I expect? So, but here's the only exception to that is, yeah, let's say you're kind of a franchise or something, you've got a parent company that just doesn't want you talking about it. Not much you can do in that case, right? So what I would still maybe recommend is just, if you offer different packages, what you can do is at least talk about what affects the price, okay? Here's what's gonna drive the price up, here's what's gonna make it a little cheaper. So you're not really offering any kind of pricing or ballpark pricing, but you're at least kind of addressing those questions that they're gonna have about pricing in general. And then you're gonna wanna get them on the phone so you can kind of explain to them their options that way. Okay, next question is from Dom, and Dom asks, WordPress is mentioned a lot. I guess it's because it attempts to make it easy to build and manage websites. Do you feel like WordPress sites get more recognition online than, say, HTML, CSS sites, or is it really all about how Google sees the site? I'm guessing it's because there are a lot of WordPress plugins that also make it easy for people, but does it make it better than an HTML site if you do the same things necessary for Google to see it the same way? So Dom, I'm not sure exactly it sounds like you're asking if a WordPress site is better in terms of Google searches. Not necessarily, but I will tell you why you kind of don't want to mess with an HTML, CSS site anymore that's not built on that kind of CMS. So WordPress is awesome because it gives you control if you're not techie. So, Dom, if you were a developer and HTML and CSS, great, that works for you. But even if that is you, WordPress just makes it easy to kind of build in these templates and build it all out the way you want, and then really quickly duplicate a template and then add the content to it. And yeah, you mentioned plugins. That is absolutely one of the main benefits of a WordPress site, because basically you have all this open source material out there that you can get for free that other developers have come up with, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. And these plugins can perform so many functions. They can make your site faster. They can just hook up Google Analytics to it really easily. There's so many, they can optimize image sizes. So yeah, in 2019, going into 2020 soon enough, there's really no reason to be using a custom coded HTML, CSS website anymore. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and you're creating a lot of extra work for yourself if you do that. And doesn't make too much of a difference to Google, except for, like I say, all those plugins that'll help you because they're just kind of optimizing for SEO in the background. They're making sure your site loads faster, all that good stuff. So I guess in that way, I'll revise my answer and say, yeah, it probably actually will help you rank in Google with WordPress. So no reason to go the old school way. Let's keep things on the WordPress train and you'll do fine. All right, our next question is from Carlos M. And Carlos says, I see you recommend Calendly. Yes, I do. Is there another plugin you know of that doesn't direct the visitor outside of the website when they want to schedule an appointment or consultation? A plugin that integrates into the website. So Calendly, I don't know if you've seen any of my videos about that. It's basically a really cool online scheduling tool that allows you as a business owner to have your clients just schedule a time on your calendar that works for you. And then there's not the back and forth. So basically, he's saying, is there a different version that lets people do it on your website? I'm sure there are, but Calendly does that too. So you can direct people. So when you get set up with the Calendly membership, which is free, by the way, there's paid plans, but there's free as well. You can send a simple link to that event type on your Calendly system if you want. So it's, that would be on their website. But you can absolutely embed that code right on your website very easily. I know that may sound daunting if you're not techie. I'm not either. But basically they give you a snippet of code and you just type it into a little editor on WordPress, and it couldn't be any easier, and it lives on your website so people never have to leave it. So I hope that helps you, Carlos. All right, next is from Andrew Reichel, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but what is your advice or opinion on exact match domains? So if you're not sure what an exact match domain is, it's basically your domain name would be like the keyword phrase you're trying to rank for. So let's say, I don't know why I'm on a dog grooming kick lately. I'm just talking about that as an example. But if you're a dog groomer in Charlotte, for instance, an exact match domain would be doggroomercharlotte.com. So here's the upside of an exact match domain. It definitely still helps in Google searches. Google claims that it doesn't really help anymore, but it does. What Google says and what they actually reward don't always match up. So it will help you show up higher in a search, but the downside is it doesn't really look like a brand, right? So if you're searching for a dog groomer and you've got one that has like an actual branded name, sounds like a real business, if that's like number 2 or 3, you're probably more likely to click on that than doggroomercharlotte.com, which is number 1. It just sounds kind of spammy, right? It doesn't sound like a real business. And not to mention the fact, if you are a business, you got to be in this for the long haul. And what you don't want to do is have to switch your domain name later in the future, because you're building links to your site, hopefully. You're building all this brand equity to your website. And what happens in maybe 5 years when Google actually stops valuing those exact match domains, which they probably will because they keep getting smarter all the time. So once that happens, now you're left with this really spammy, ugly looking URL. So I'm not a huge fan of exact match URLs, or domains rather. The smarter thing is to use that on kind of the back end of your domain. So it would be, again, to use my example, thedeependdesign.com/web consulting. It's not webconsultingchicago.com, but I still have web consulting in that page title. It's not the home page, but it's a service page. It's a landing page. So that's how I recommend you do it. Okay, the next one is from, another one from Dom. And Dom says, is blogging still an important part of the Google algorithm? It's a long question. I can see how blogging about certain things might make sense and be important, but other things probably don't lend themselves as much to blogging. So basically, is blogging still an important thing to be able to rank in Google searches? And yes, blogging actually can help you for a few reasons. So the first one is, it's a simple one. Basically, Google just likes to see sites that are not stagnant, right? They like to see sites that are adding content over time. It just shows that you're growing and that you're actually like a real brand. So it helps for that reason. It also helps because if you think of every blog post as another chance to be found in a search, that's great. So think of questions that people might be typing into Google that you can answer in the form of a blog post. That way people don't just have to find you, through your homepage or your service pages. They can find you in all these different pages now, which is also a good thing. One thing to bring up though, there might be certain industries where it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a blog, like people aren't really looking for anything. And I can't think of too many examples, honestly, because there will always be people that have questions around just about any topic, even if it's a really boring topic. Guess who it's not boring for? The people who are going through something where they need your services. Even a plumber or something which is not like a super sexy topic, but if someone's looking for how to snake a drain or how to, unclog a toilet or something like that, there are still opportunities to write a blog post about that or make a video about that or something. And so this DIY kind of content can serve a dual purpose because people find you, and some people will just then do it themselves and not hire you, but a certain percentage of them will come to the article and read it and say, screw it, I'm just gonna hire these guys to do it for me. So blogging is almost always a good thing. So really ask yourself, what are those questions I can answer, and then start there. All right, next we have from Travis Lopez, and Travis says, what lazy load plugin do you recommend for WordPress? So a little bit of background, a lazy load plugin is something that I'm sure you've been to websites before where you scroll down a certain amount of the page and then more content loads. And we do that for a very important reason, which is to increase the perceived page load speed. So while it doesn't really make an entire page load faster, what it basically does, think if you have a really long homepage, okay? Google does not like it if your page takes 10 seconds to load. And actually, who else doesn't like that either is people coming to your website. So what you want for them is a really seamless experience where when they get to your homepage, at least the stuff on top loads very quickly. So what you don't want to have happen is someone gets to your homepage and it's loading everything that's at the bottom of the page that they're not going to see yet anyway, and that kind of could happen before the stuff at the top of the page loads. So what lazy loading does is it always concentrates on loading only the things that are in view. The other upside of a lazy loading plugin is basically if you're on a hosting plan that keeps track of how much bandwidth they're using and will stop you at a certain point. Imagine if someone is coming to your really long homepage, but they're not going all the way down. They're only scrolling a quarter of the way down. You don't want to have to pay for all that extra data being loaded if they're never going to see it. So you're saving on data load basically with your hosting plan at that point, and you're getting extra page load speed points too. So, but you're asking which plugin do I recommend? There are a few. There's one called BJ Lazy Load, but the one I actually recommend, I've been using now, it comes along, there's a plugin called Smush, S-M-U-S-H, and it compresses your images, which is great because you can have these really nice, beautiful images, but it compresses them in such a way that they still look good, but they take up a lot less space. And that plugin also does lazy loading, so it's a good way. It's a kind of a twofer. So I like that. I like Smush. It does kills two birds with one stone. That's all I've got this time, but if you have any questions, like I say, leave them below. They can be questions about your website, about landing pages, about email marketing, about Facebook ads, YouTube, anything like that, and I will get to them in a future video. And until then, just go ahead and watch one of these videos because there's no reason why we have to quit learning now. So go ahead and click on one of these videos, and I will see you there. I'm Wes McDowell for The Deep End.